All right, we are live on Facebook. Welcome to the Leader Equation. I am Linzee Ciprani, CEO of Ciprani Consulting and the Linzee Ciprani team. We're the top recruiting and consulting firm in the country for all things real estate, and I'm here with my lovely co-host, Christy Grossman, CEO of Ops Boss Coaching, the ultimate resource for training and coaching for real estate's ops bosses. Welcome to the Leader Equation. Today we're really excited because Christy and I have two of our favorite people on here that we get to interview. Are you excited that you're two of our favorite people?
It's pretty cool.
We don't say that to everybody.
We don't say that to everybody.
You've had some great people on the show, so.
That's true. We love you guys. So we've got Haro, Setian, and his director of operations, or whatever is needed, which Christy said is win, Kayla Slice of the Haro group. They're going to be doing, she's winning, all those things. So welcome today. They have been in business together now for 4.5 years, which is awesome and a true testament to what they're building together. And so we're really excited to talk to them. Before we jump into our awesome quick fire questions, can you guys just walk us through, briefly, how did you get into real estate and kind of what has your path been? And then Christy will take it from there.
Ladies first.
Oh, I got into real estate. Everyone told me I should get into real estate, for like 6 years. And then I finally listened. And what I did was I knew I wanted to be on a team and I looked for the best team in town, interviewed with two and chose the Haro group. So I've been with the Haro group and Haro the whole time I've been in real estate.
Love it. And Haro.
In 2009, I had left my previous career and was looking for something new, and did a lot of research and evaluated a lot of different paths, primarily in the world of sales. And an old friend of mine from college had a real estate team, and at that time reached out and said, "Hey, we have more leads than we can handle." This is 2009. And he said, "Do you know anyone that wants to get into real estate?" Now, mind you, someone had given me a red book 2 years previous, and I had read said red book. Wow, that was fun. And I said, "Man, if someone did that would work. That's a really good system that's in that book." And my dad had sold real estate for a little while. My father-in-law had a 40-year career. I already had some investment properties. And as I was evaluating all my options, for a number of reasons, real estate was the best fit for who I was, what my goals were, and what we wanted as a family. So when that text came, it was providential and well, all right, let's talk. So.
And that's all she wrote, and 10 years flew by.
Yeah, that was May 2009.
Holy wow, from here to there. Well, let's get the numbers and the quick data on the quick fire, and then we'll move into the meat. So you've been in business together 4.5 years. Haro, 10 years in real estate. Kayla, you're 6 years?
No, I'm 4.5.
Yep.
So you've only been in real estate with Haro Group. Okay,
That's
got it.
correct.
All right,
Yeah.
Year one profit. You can take that as an agent or a team or as a family. I know you have multiple business streams of income. Year one profit and this year's expected.
Year one, it's just hard to pinpoint what year one is. So if we think about first year as a team, that's what I wrote down when you sent me these questions. It's about 200,000. My first year as a team, that was 2012. And we'll do this year. We've gone through a restructuring the last couple of years. And we'll talk about that more today, I'm sure. This year will be kind of low, actually. We'll hit about 90,000 in profit this year. I do take a salary from my real estate business, and I have several other businesses. So global income is probably $400,000.
Okay, that's awesome. First of all, I want to say high five. Like, you guys are so transparent, and I'm so excited to have this conversation today. How many on the team? Year one, you were a single agent. How many on the team now?
The year one I just referenced was 2012, and we started with me plus one, and then ended with 4 that year.
And then how many now?
Right now we have 16.
Awesome.
Plus, yeah.
Okay, and then who wants to take, what's your morning routine for success?
Go for it.
About 2 years ago, I realized that there's a little thing I make my people read. It's called the common denominator of success.
It's really good.
And one of the things that it says in there, and I had read this, I was first exposed to this in my first sales job in 1996. And I probably read this thing 30 times. And one of the things that says in there is if you're not deliberately forming the habits of success or something to that effect, I can't even remember the exact words, then you'll be unintentionally or by default building habits that will lead you to failure. If you don't intentionally build good habits. And a couple of years ago, it just hit me, you know what, I have not, there are things I don't like about myself, and there are things that I do that are ineffective, and I want to get better. So I started a journey of, from the one thing of doing 66-day trackers. And the first one I realized, really the first and most important thing is my mornings needed to get under control. So I started researching. I kind of avoided the miracle morning because that's such a fad, but frankly, I do the miracle morning basically.
It's like a fad that's been around for a while.
Yeah.
Great, fads aren't bad.
So my morning, most mornings, about 5 days a week, starts with I get up at 4, get hot tea, water, take my supplements, and then 20 minutes of Bible reading, 20 minutes of prayer, 20 minutes of journaling, 10 to 15 minutes of meditating. Then I go over my goals for the day and fill out my daily planner and just make sure I'm clear on what appointments and what things I need to do that day. And then I go work out, usually 30 minutes to an hour, come back, make breakfast. I shower, which is a good thing. And eat. I play with my kids for a few minutes and then head to the office.
I love that.
And a lot of that actually mirrors what Gary said in the Red Book about the energy plan for the morning. So
when you take my Be a Boss class, are you going to get a 5 this time when we do the contest on the morning success routine and Gary's energy plan?
I have no idea, but
there's five things in there that you have to do before 11 o'clock every day.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I'd get a 5. I'm pretty sure I'd get it.
Okay. All right, Kayla, you want to take how do you prep for tomorrow? Your success routine for today starts yesterday.
Yeah, so I look at my calendar. I am always looking at my calendar. So the day before and the morning of, and making sure I just know what's there, what's expected of me. One thing that's really important to me is I always have my lunches for my whole family prepared the night before. I'm a night before gal. Like, I don't like procrastinating. So if there's anything I can put in my car the night before, in my husband's car the night before, he just broke his leg. So there's a lot of things right now for him.
It's nonstop with this one.
Non-freaking stop.
Broken leg, whooping off, all the things.
I know. Yeah, and then I work to like know my inbox by the end of the day. If it can be cleared, be cleared. If it's not, it's not. And then know the one thing that I really need to hit that day. Like, what is, if I get nothing else done today, this is the thing I have to leave having completed. And I need to say no to things to make that thing happen.
I love that. How you win the day. Okay, what book impacted you the most?
I think I wrote.
You wrote a lot. I wrote a lot. We like reading. So.
Yeah, so the way I thought about this question was, which are the books, I can't answer with one book. So which are the books that I've actually read multiple times?
Yep.
Like, what's the book that you go back to? And there's several. One is Life is Tremendous by Charlie Jones. How I Raised Myself from Failure to Success in Selling by Frank Betcher. How to Win Friends and Influence People. Millionaire Real Estate Agent. Cash Flow Quadrant.
Yeah.
That one has impacted me tremendously. And then on the spiritual side of things, I think there's 2 books that have been pivotal for my faith. And one of them was called Desiring God by a guy named John Piper. And then another one is called A Praying Life by a guy named Paul Miller. And then as I think about faith and business, the book Why Business Matters to God by Jeff Van Duzer those are kind of my.
Garden City.
That's an awesome.
I haven't read Garden City twice. It's good. It's a good book, but I haven't read it twice.
Yeah.
All right, Kayla, you have anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, so going by Haro's definition, so the book that I've given away the most is Women of the Word, which is a spiritual book. I really love it. And A Praying Life with Haro and A Loving Life. Those are companion books by the same guy. The one thing, I read it 3 times this year. It's just a great book. It's simple and easy. And then the book I'm currently recommending like wildfire is The Ultimate Blueprint for an Insanely Successful Business by Keith Cunningham. And if you haven't read it, you need to read it. It simplifies business financials. You can read it in like 2 hours. It's
Say
so
it again, ultimate blueprint for what?
yeah, the ultimate blueprint for an insanely successful business by Keith Cunningham.
He also wrote the book The Road Less Stupid, which some people have
He's
heard of.
written a lot, yeah.
Yeah.
But
Awesome.
that book is like 2 hours business financials class. I actually, my MAPS coach has been Mike Bastian, who's called the Numbers Whisperer. And I was like, Mike, you could have written this book. And I sent it to him to read it. And he was like, I just bought it for my whole leadership team. This is such a great book. So
Love that. Yeah. Nobody doesn't need to know the numbers, and you guys know that more than anybody else, which we're going to talk about. Last 2 quick fire questions. How many streams of income do you each have?
14.
6.
And superpower. What's your superpower, or what's Kayla's superpower?
You know, Kayla has this ability to see things very, very clearly and kind of parse out the pieces and just have a quick, clear assessment. And then that's great. And then she doesn't really have a hard time being direct with that. So those are her superpowers.
I love that. I love that you guys were literally hashing it out right as we were coming on air today. So that was fab. What's Haro's superpower, Kayla?
One of our superpowers is energy. So he never lacks in energy. Even if he doesn't feel it, he can create it. And that has been really great for our team. And he is able to move people to action. And I think that would be his second major superpower.
Love that. So I know we probably have a lot of new listeners because we have such great guests today. If you haven't been with us before, we're chatting with entrepreneurs and their shotgun leaders inside and outside real estate about what adds to the leadership formula, what takes away, what divides, and most importantly, what multiplies your success. How do entrepreneurs find their integrator? How do integrators choose their visionary? And Linzee's going to take us into the really deeper questions. So let's do it.
Yeah, so I know that a lot of people are going to want to know, how did you guys decide that you could work together? And when was the moment, Kayla, when you made that switch from, sales into the roles that you are now, more into operations, but still sales? Walk us through what that looked like.
I'll give my version and then fill in the holes. It was.
Okay.
So I had, the team had grown tremendously from 2012 to 2017. And in that growth, I had actually stepped out to launch a new business and spent about the better part of 1.5 to 2 years doing that. And someone else was running the team at the time. And when I came back, I discovered that there was just a lot of stuff that wasn't quite what I thought it was, and eventually took the reins back of the team. Kayla was in kind of an odd hybrid administrative / sales role at the time in the organization. There wasn't really a clear structure. And as I worked to try to figure out how to put the business back on the right track, we adopted, I had been given the book Traction by several friends and had kind of seen this system, the EOS system, entrepreneur operating system, as an infrastructure that would probably be good for us. And we hired someone to help kind of install that into the company. And as we were talking and saying, okay, who in the organization does this function of, Haro, you're definitely a visionary. Who is someone that can take that and work it into the organization and make sure that your vision's being accomplished? And there were several people around that table that were in leadership roles in the company at the time, and everyone kind of pointed at Kayla.
I was so surprised.
Yeah, and I had seen that some of that skill in her and the ownership that she would take, and it made sense to me, and I got kind of excited because I thought, hey, this could be a lot of fun. And so that was kind of the beginning of us having this, if you will, visionary integrator relationship.
Yeah, so I'll add to that I started on the team as a buyer agent. And pretty quickly I was like, this is not the role for me. I'm not loving this. Not that you love every day of your life, but like, this does not have staying power. And I was told like, well, it's because you're not winning. That's why it doesn't have staying power. And I was like, fine. So then I started winning, and I was like, hey, winning, still don't like it. And So I take an administrative role on our team. They told me like, oh, well, you can, I was like, I love this team. I want to stay a part of this team. I love the vision. I love where we're going, but this role isn't it. And so I was offered an executive assistant role, as long as I also completed 36 deals concurrent with working full-time as an executive assistant. So I did that. And
Wait, pause for a second, because there's a whole bunch of EAs that are listening to that going, I don't even have agents on my team doing 36 deals, much less also being an EA.
Yeah.
Holy wow.
Yeah.
Like, yep, no big deal.
Yeah.
I mean, it is my sphere. So if you're present, like a human present when you're with people and you care and you stay in touch, I mean, that's the advice that Haro and Moses had given me when I started, to reach out to anybody I knew, because I hadn't lived in our town before. So I didn't actually even live here. I lived an hour away when I started. So I was commuting an hour each way, which is not the normal commute here in Greenville, South Carolina. It's not like DC Metro or anything like that. So I was trying to like, who do I know that's here? And so I set up coffee appointments, and I really didn't even have to lead generate at all year 2 to do. We actually ended up with 40 that year
That's awesome. And I mean, here's the thing. So what I'm hearing too is that you were really drawn to the team, which to me means culture. I know, like, I've seen videos of Haro like beating people with pillows and all kinds of things. And I've always pointed to your team as like, I love their culture. Like, how important is that?
Very. I mean, I've had 75 different roles on this team. Not really. I just also don't care what my title is. So yeah, it's really important. I think it's what's helped us weather some things. And when we lost sight of that is when we had people with us that weren't aligned, and then some correction had to take place. But I remember at my first Christmas party, so I started in July and Christmas party was obviously in December, but just saying like, wow, I really feel like I was the only female in the agent pool at the time. And I just remember feeling like I had really gained brothers, like actual siblings on the team and not just coworkers in, 6 months. So I thought that was pretty cool.
So Kayla, when you were interviewing, you said you looked for the top teams, you interviewed with 2, and you chose. What were 3 things that you were looking for in your visionary or your leader?
Yeah. In the team is that I just don't like losing. So I didn't want to be somewhere that was losing. That's really important.
Yep.
I also wanted people who walked in integrity. So when you say, I value this, that your actions support that. And the other people would say the same thing about you, because I was entering a world I didn't know. This wasn't like I had done real estate for 10 years and was moving. Like, whoever was going to train me was going to create those thoughts, right? Like, someone is laying foundation for me. And then focus on faith and honoring the Lord is really important to me too. So both teams that I interviewed with said that that was the case.
So Haro, when you were at this point you were just describing, and you're all sitting around the table and everybody looks at Kayla, what were the 3 reasons why you got excited that maybe she was your one?
I mean, everyone respected her. She knew the company well, and she knew what we were doing. She was really the right hand of the previous general manager. And I could just I could tell we had already had one fierce conversation with each other.
We did.
Yeah. And I could tell that she didn't here was a person of no guile, humble, and willing to have confident enough to have a hard conversation with me. As the owner of the company, who was fairly absent for the first 2 years of her tenure here, and she was willing to have a tough conversation with me. So I knew right away there was something we could work together.
Can you guys dig into that for me? Because that's a topic that kind of Lindsay and I are like
We're
jumping.
like, what was it?
We're gonna ask. Exactly, because I saw you post your KPA the other day, and I actually went and looked up mine. Both of us are like off the charts on intensity, all the way to the right. So I imagine that those fierce conversations are pretty fierce. So talk to us about that, because a lot of people struggle having those without hard feelings, without the emotion that comes along, all of that.
So I'm also a really high I, and I like people to like me. So one of the things that Kayla's really effective at, whether she tries, whether it's even done intentionally or not, is it's actually easy to have a hard conversation with her. Like, we just live in a normal state of like hard conversation. So that's really helpful, because if I can tell that someone's being potentially hurt by what I'm saying, one of my tendencies is to like hold back on actually what needs to be said. And I try to be aware of that, but again, it's kind of a natural just inclination for me but if I know that they're not going to be hurt, as long as I'm just not a total ass, that we can just have a conversation about something, and that person's not going to internalize and all of a sudden feel wounded, then in fact, I really enjoyed how Rock Thomas said that on this podcast about him, and I don't remember the gentleman's name. He talked, Ken, that's right, about how he could, he wanted someone that he didn't have to worry about, like, hey, am I gonna hurt their feelings if I say something? In fact, I'm in an EA search right now, and that's like on my missing persons report. Like, that's what I'm looking for, is I'm going to try to hurt their feelings in the interview and see how they respond.
Which is great. And we love that. Well, and Kayla, how do you think, like, is that something that you've always embodied? Like, has that always been a part of who you are? Or, I mean, we can tell, I mean, what is shining through with you is your humbleness, which is fabulous, because I feel like that's what people are going to really see with you.
She's proud of it.
But like, is that something you grew into, or like, were you ever like offended by things that that he says or other people have said? Like, what does that look like?
Yeah. So,
I have heard her. Don't mistake that.
Yeah. I'm not a robot, so that's good. Yeah. So who I've been for my life is, I'm usually like, if anyone reads the Bible or anything like that, like, wounds of a friend can be trusted. Like, I will say the thing that needs to be said, or have the conversation that needs to be had. And I feel like I've grown in my ability to have those well, because I think I had those arrogantly growing up. Like, I think it was just like, the way I'm approaching this is that I want to tell you how you're wrong. And there's a lot that's happened in my life personally that has nothing to do with like legs and whooping cough this year. That's also been a good leveler.
As if those weren't enough.
I know.
That's also just been a good leveler for me, just to see my own inabilities, if that makes sense, like where my weaknesses are, or where I could be tempted, or where I could go if it's left unchecked. And that moved me to a place of like, I need help. I cannot turn out like some of my family members have. That's not an option. So, okay, just say it. Like, this is not an option. So whatever we need to do. So I think like both. I think I've been that person. And I also, if you're a Strengths Finders fan, one of my strengths is harmony. And sometimes that's misunderstood. So I actually just I hate sitting beef with anyone. And so, we talked about it on our little questionnaire later, but we just keep really short accounts. I don't like to question where I stand with anyone, and I don't want anyone else to question where they stand with me. I think it's just an energy suck, and it's exhausting. And so our first fierce conversation, because you were asking about it too, was someone had told me that I had offended Haro in several ways and come across in a certain way, and like was biting to him and something else. And so I was like, okay, well, then I need to address it. And so I sat down with him and I said, hey, I've been told that there's some issues you have with me and some ways that I've come across. I just want to hear you and learn how I can be better. So I'm not going to respond, and I just want you to tell me, can you give me some examples of when I've done this, how it's offended you, how you felt, and then we'll like move on. And I was like totally scared, like I'm sweating. And I'm like sitting there, you know, it's like sitting on the roller coaster right before it drops, like this is going to be painful. And he was like, I don't remember that. I was like, okay, well, that's over there.
We're good.
So I think that's good. And I think I just recently did a like study on feedback, a training on it. And one of the things that they said is that you're always going to have the fight, flight, or freeze response to feedback. So you don't actually eliminate that, you just manage it. So you don't like.
I love how you set the boundary there in that conversation, that you said, I want to hear you so that I can learn, and I'm not going to respond. Because I think that's where a lot of our shotgun leaders are challenged with, feeling like they have to respond, and then it's a reaction, not a response.
Right. And then I'm not in control of it, which you guys asked like how we've grown, and I'm not in control of how I'm responding, and that's not good.
Love that.
It's so good because, you know, I think that a lot of time, I mean, I love that you just said fight, flight, or freeze too. I think a lot of people don't think of freeze in there. It's fight or flight. That's what we're taught all the time, right? And that's just such an important thing. Walk us through, you know, obviously, if you have a gift of what I'm gonna say is a gift of challenge too. You know, being able to challenge somebody and really being able to kind of see the paths forward and challenge a visionary. Walk us through, I mean, that's got to mean that you're looking at the business from a different lens too, and challenging everything that's happening, profit, you know, where money's going, who we've got, all those things, right, Kayla? So all of that.
Yep, all those things.
Yeah.
The question is, I don't know.
Well, and so the question there is like, how has that helped you, Haro? Like, because I know as somebody who is a client who likes people and wants I mean, we want to keep people around a lot of the times, but we do, as a small business, you have to make hard choices. And sometimes you have to look at all the money that you're spending and where and on whom and talk through that, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's really no area that's untouchable between us. We, you know, especially as the business is concerned, and even outside of the business, like we're pretty frank and good friends.
Yeah.
As far as the business is concerned, I mean, it's been like, really, she's my partner. Like, there's no area of the business that she can't touch,
Yeah.
and that I don't want her to touch, because she sees things so well and has strengths that I don't have. And it's such a complimentary relationship.
Yeah. And so many people don't feel that way, right? Like the buck stops with the visionary a lot. And most times, like, the person in Kayla's role has to keep going back to the visionary over and over again and be like, hey, I think we should make this decision. Hey, I think we should do, you know, is she able to make decisions without you, or is everything a partnership together? What does that look like?
Some decisions, there's still a sense in which we're like, there's some things that perhaps I'm more, I have more experience with than she does, or something that I feel passionately about that maybe someone else would let go, and that I don't let go just because I have a vision about how that thing's supposed to be.
Yeah, I would say we actually most of the time make decisions together. Sometimes it's like informing that the decision is being made, but I don't think we ever, other than like small things.
Yeah.
I don't think that there are decisions that we both haven't touched. I'll at least say that.
Well, and you guys have leadership retreats, right? Where you talk about those things and you actually go away and get together.
Yeah, we spent 2 days offsite this week.
Yeah, we did. And then our leadership team meets once a week for an hour and a half, going over things of that week.
Yeah.
Which includes us and some other team members.
You know, I was actually just reading something from Michael Hyatt, and it talked about the 5 levels of delegation. And I'm going to really, I think I'm going to study that and get better at it, because I think it's helpful when you're talking to someone, you delegate something and say, like, what level is this? It's like, hey, go research it, come tell me everything, and I'll tell you what to do. Go research it, tell me what you think are the 2 best things, and then we'll decide together. Go research it and make the decision. Don't tell me I don't care. Like,
Right.
and like giving those names and numbering them and say, hey, this is a level 5 delegation. So you've got all the control. That was it was something I read really in the last couple of weeks as I'm preparing for.
It's actually interesting. You're reminding me. My husband and I teach pre-Cana, which was a marriage prep thing in our church, and we used to talk about exactly that. What are the decisions that you as a husband and wife can make separately? What are the decisions that you want to make together? How much money can one person spend without getting the buy-in from the other? It's the same thing. This is your work wife, work relationship, work marriage, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah. I think we could get better at that.
And I would say too, just where we've been financially as a business means that we have to
be a little
more careful,
painstaking.
Yeah, and like we want, like, it's a gauntlet to spend $1. And so, which is good. It's where we need to be right now. And I think as we grow into a healthy financial model, there will be more freedom on both fronts within a budgetary constraint, but that being the constraint rather than like filter. I think that's my opinion.
So I want to dive into that because I think a lot of people can learn a lot. This is like the subject nobody talks about. So you guys started.
At your service.
Yes. We're thankful for that.
The whipping boy. But you guys started building this team. Your units started just massively growing, like your chaos hit. And what was okay, maybe at a lower level, was not, as you scaled, as healthy as it could be, or maybe it was camouflaged for a little while. And then you came to the realization, like, holy cannoli, we've got to do something about the profit. How do you turn a ship around like that? Like, what does that even look like? Like, what compelled the decision in the first place? And then how do you course correct?
When I stepped back into the business in late 2017, after launching the Market Center Co-Rims franchise, there's just a lot of things that needed work. And I realized that I had been away while this thing had developed, and I needed help. So I went and engaged 3 coaches fairly quickly for different things and started working with them. By God's grace, I feel like we discovered this traction, this EOS system that gave us, I read the book Predictable Success, and it talked about how in the growth of a company, you hit this spot called whitewater. And as I read the thing that describes whitewater, like I just laughed the whole way through. I was like, this is like the perfect definition of our company. And one day I read it in a team meeting.
Send us a text message, like, read this, we're not crazy.
Yeah, it's like this is not abnormal. We're actually in normal, which is good.
For those people listening, give us the quick definition of that.
It was just like, there's no rules. Everybody's kind of doing what they want. You got customer issues.
Sales are the big dogs, and the sales agents are the big dogs that no one can touch.
Because they, the founder found them in the beginning, and
ops are dejected.
Yeah, and this was like, this wasn't a real estate book. This was a business book in general. And so I stepped back in, and then from 2012 to 2017, I think the market really helped us, and we grew really, really fast. And felt like every move we made, like, just wasn't wrong. Like, it worked at that time. And then the complexity of the organization kicked in. We had gotten to business with some people that I just realized, man, I don't really want to work with these people when I got back into the company. And little by little, people either remove themselves or we remove them. Yep. And then those things took a toll because we had structures that supported them. And then there was relationships with people on the team with them. And so then a lot of these people actually ended up in our same market center. And so there was just some weirdnesses. It was just a weird period of time. Meanwhile, like the year previous to that, there had been like, everybody's going through like life stuff too. We had 9 babies born, one person that had a baby die, like a 4-year-old child die. Like there's just all this stuff.
Someone's husband started abusing them.
Yes. There was just all this stuff that was happening, and we're a tight-knit group. And so all these things were just like kind of rocking the business. And so 2018 was kind of like a let's settle things back down and get some structure in place. And then coming into 2019, we're like, okay, we're going to ramp sales back up. And we actually lost money in 2018 because my goal was let's keep people in place so that there's stability. And then we should be able to grow sales just like we did in the past and just grow right back out of this. And then we'll be back to healthy profit margins. And then 2019, that didn't happen.
Right.
We, it wasn't coming. And it was about August that I had a conversation with Kayla where I was like, this isn't working. And the leading indicators were just like, we're going to have some issues. And it took us a couple of months to like duke it out internally. And I hired a new coach from MAPS, and she helped me see things really, really clearly. And I think I realized that my values had shifted, whereas in the past, I really valued recognition and growth for growth's sake. Like we had a P&L, but there was enough money and I wasn't really just paying close attention to that. And I was like, man, if we just grow sales, everything's going to be fine. And I'm actually like, I like growing sales, and that's something I have a proclivity towards. So let's just do that. And then we'll figure out this, you hear from stage, and I love Adam, and I know this isn't what he meant, but like put your foot down on the gas pedal, lead generation, put 2 nails in it, make money. And if you make mistakes, you'll just pay for them. So I was like, yeah, we'll do that. And we're paying for them. And then, like I said, this year the sales weren't coming as fast. And I had one of your guests, a really good conversation with Seth Campbell about our challenges. And I was kind of getting different pieces of advice from different places. And Seth looked at me and he said, hey, you really don't have a sales issue. I was like, what do you mean? He's like, you're going to do 2 million in GCI. That's like top 0.5% in the country. You don't have a sales issue. You have an expense issue. And it was that one encapsulated like sentence that made me stop and say, okay, I really do. And I knew this was coming, but that really helped crystallize it in my head. Like, we've got to make a really hard decision. Another line that I heard earlier this year from Jeannie Osnes at a class that she's teaching called Profit Camp was that profit is a habit. Yeah. And I hadn't treated it like a habit. I had treated it like a this is the leftovers
like
after you do the things after you do the things to run the business. And of course, many of us read Profit First this year, and that helped really clarify my thinking. It's crazy because I had already lived this way in my home. Right. I live a profit first mentality in my home. I've always taken the pay yourself first mentality at home and taken everything out of every paycheck. And that's why we've built tremendous wealth outside of my real estate sales business, is because we've been doing that effectively for many years. Mm-hmm. I wasn't doing it in my real estate business. I was like, oh, hello, got to do that here too. So I think your question was, how'd you make, then we came to the point where we had, you guys know about this, so we had to make a really tough decision. We laid off 4 people here recently, 3 people. Yeah. 3 people, and have been all year long making a really hard look at expenses and just cutting and cutting.
We cut like everything that wasn't necessary up until people all year.
Right. I think we were running a $130,000 average monthly budget at the end of last year. Higher 140. That was 140. We're down to 90 now, and we'll get to 60 by Q1.
Awesome.
So as you were making those decisions, we talked earlier about how when I've taught down there, the culture on your team is unbelievable. The clarity of what your values are, like you walk in the office, you see them living. It's not just talked about. So how did your culture, your mission, vision, values, and beliefs steer your decisions as you had to make really hard decisions this year? Like, were these just like purely business decisions, or were mission, vision, values integrated in there?
How would you answer
that? So it's hard because one way of interpreting, hey, did mission, vision, values have an effect, or was it just business? Like, it was both. And to take care of the community that God has placed us in means the business. And we employ wonderful people, and we had to let some of those wonderful people go. It's not like we let go of these low grade people, like they are people that we are actively calling around and pre-reference calling people that could have a job opening. So it's not this like, you know,
It's not like you had a bunch of slackers and it was an easy decision.
No, it was not easy. I mean, the day that we did that, like, we care a lot. Like, this is probably TMI, but I'm gonna say it anyway. I threw up 3 times and like couldn't, like, it was just awful. It was so hard. But I knew I also had 16 other people to take care of too. And so that's part of some stewardship that we hadn't done well. And so at the end of the day, it's not just that. We also looked at each other in the face and said, like, this is never happening again.
Right.
Like we didn't spend our time well. We didn't invest wisely. Like we will never do this again. It's not lost on me that was a really big effect to those families. That's not light. It's not easy. And as a commitment to those people and the ones that are still here, we just can't ever live that way again.
Yeah.
I love that. I really admire and respect you guys for sharing that with us. Thank you.
Yeah, one of the things that helped me kind of process that is I had a friend in Gary's group say, you know, Haro, I've never had to do what you did. And that took a lot of courage. He's like, I'm proud to say I've never had to do what you did. He said, but the reality is because I didn't do what you did in my first company, I actually had to sit down with everybody and tell them the company was shutting down and they all were out of a job. And I was like, and it's crazy because one of the people that we had to let go was actually here yesterday because she had taken some people through CV and she was finishing her job and did the defense for them yesterday. And we were talking about, how do you feel about all this? She's like, Haro, it was tough. And she's like, it was the right thing. She's like, it's better than a few people have to go. And this is someone that was literally just laid off 3 weeks ago. She said it was better that some had to go than everyone having to go later. And I was like, wow. Like, that just tells you how, and I'm sitting there like, I miss this person already. Like, she's just a great asset to the organization.
Yeah.
So hard.
It was,
So those people who are listening right now thinking, wondering, am I the leader? Am I one of the leaders on this ship that needs a course correction? What was it that finally made you like make the decision, like we have to do something this drastic? Because you guys have been sort of battling this issue for a while, and all of a sudden I feel like you've just turned the Titanic's going. You just don't turn. You guys are a Titanic nationwide with your production. Like you're, like Seth said, top 0.5% or whatever it is. The Titanic doesn't just turn on a dime the way a dinghy does. Titanic is like, that's massive. It takes a long time to turn it. And you guys have been trying to turn it, but you had to take more drastic action. What compelled that?
I don't even feel like we've turned it yet. I think we just set the propeller and it's still in the turn.
We have charted course.
Yeah. Well, and that's so interesting too, because you guys, so like, can we talk about the dynamics on the team? Even like Haro, when you stepped back into the business too, like it's such a funky thing though, right? To like kind of allow somebody to take your business on and coming back in, like, you know, a lot of the people are like, what's happening? Like, why is he back? What's going on? And there's this, you know, there's like a
Some
weird
of them were probably
that
saying,
happens.
who is he?
Yeah.
Say it again.
Some of them were probably saying, who is this guy?
Yeah, that's definitely true.
Right?
Well, when he came back in, so I had only really had maybe 2 or 3 interactions with Haro.
I'm stealing her candy.
It's cough drops, you know, but,
Also called candy.
and I remember a meeting where Haro stepped back in with whatever our leadership team was, and he was like, are you with me? And I was like, I'm totally scared of you. I don't know what's going to come out of you. I don't know what to expect, but I'm here.
Yeah.
So it was.
Well, doesn't that feel weird though? Like when the person's out and then in. I mean, I can speak to that somewhat because, you know, I'm in 2 businesses, and so I'm in one like full time and then I'm out and then I'm in, and that's confusing to my people, honestly.
Yeah. You know, that I did my best at that time to do what to follow advice and do what I thought was best. And I spent time with each individual, just getting to know them and getting to know what they liked about the company, what they would change about the company, what would you do if you were me?
He had 4 or 5 questions he sent out to each person in advance and had a 1-hour meeting with them, allowing them to answer those questions with him. And all he did was take notes with each team member.
So when that happened, when he came back in, Kayla, and you didn't really know him that well at that point, how were you completely transparent with him, or did it take time to build up trust?
I was transparent. I wasn't always forthcoming, which I think is different than transparent.
Okay, that's what I meant. Good.
And so it took me time to build trust, but I didn't ever shy away from a question.
How did he gain trust with you?
Time, and there were things that I was told about him, about how to expect to perceive him. That was like baggage that I brought in. And then I slowly started seeing those things weren't true. So that, like, not even him doing anything in addition, but just that the expectation that was set for me about him, just slowly seeing those things not being true. All that was happening during another really difficult season. Pre those meetings with the team. But he like asked for my input on some things, asked for my opinion about some different decisions he was having to make. And so that, that's a trusting move from him to ask that question. And so I think I could reciprocate. And then I'm also just, I can't lie. I can't even play bluffing games like poker. Like, I hate it. And so I'm not going to, because it's just like, well, he owns the company at the end of the day. So like, if this totally sucks and we don't work, then we just don't work. Like, just do it or don't. Like, it's not like you can change that. It's not like, oh, well, he's going to poof, do something else, and his name won't be on the door. Like, well, it's still the door. So.
I love it.
Well, and Haro, so, talk us through what made you think like, okay, I'm going to sit down, I'm just going to ask these questions. Did you get that idea from somebody else, or was that just...
Actually, it's crazy. I just say God really ordered my steps in that period, because I went to a mastermind event in it was August or September of 2017 that I had never been to before, and I'm in that group on Facebook, and it's an industry group with a bunch of people from different companies. And I haven't been to another one since then. And it was at that event that like there was a CEO that from a vendor company that was there who had led a turnaround. And he was talking about that. And I was like, I need to talk to you. So I kind of got the 4 questions from him.
Yep.
And then it was at that event that I met 2 or 3 people that had, like, over the past 12 or 18 months previous to that, done the traction thing and installed EOS in their companies. And I was like, oh, that's really good. So I was like, man, and it was a the Washington DC mastermind, the DC Maryland mastermind in 2017. And the book that Lori Hopkins gave us was Predictable Success. And some of this stuff was going down, and I was out of town, and my wife found the book. She was like just thumbing through it, sitting on our bed, and reads like the chapter about whitewater. She takes a picture of it, sends it to me. I was like, oh my gosh, I got to read that book. So I just felt like there was like this supernatural, providential, like, I'm here to help you, my name is God, happening.
Hey, dummy.
Yeah.
That's what he was saying. No, just kidding.
I don't remember what the question was, but I feel like I was answering it.
Yeah, good. Well, and so then just walk me through too. So like, Kayla, did the energy in there feel different? Was it better with Haro, or was it like, oh, this is weird when it happens? Because here's the thing, there are a lot of people that they step out and they come back in that watch this. And I think it's like a hard thing to do, right?
Yeah, I would say it's weird. I think that it was weird. The 4-question thing was effective.
Yeah.
I just think it gave people a path to him in a calm space.
Yeah.
Because whenever you see Haro, usually it's like high energy and intensity. And so not everyone always knows how to receive that, like self included. I'm better at it now. Then it was like, this is bad? This is good? What does this mean? What am I supposed to do? And so I just think that people had only seen Haro in specific junctures. And then, he came back like worried, like some significant things were going on in his baby, like his business. And so that's, of course he's worried. Like that's not a, but I remember like he was like, no, I can't hire anybody. And there was a guy who's still on our team now who I was like about to offer. And I was like, but I really like him. He's awesome. He's like, no. I'm like, okay. And so it was weird for a while.
And you hired him.
I hired him. He's awesome. And so it was weird for a while, and then people just learned.
It just became normal again.
Yeah.
Well, and several of our most productive salespeople who have been with us now, it'll be 6 years in February. They were there from the beginning, and there's some deep relationships there. So, like, I already had some, if you will, some anchor relationships.
I was the first person Haro didn't hire.
Okay.
Like in the timeline. So people who had been here longer than 4.5 years were hired by Haro.
Right. And
your biggest success together as a leadership team?
I mean, moving the business in a.
I mean, we went from losing money last year to making money. I mean, it's not a big increase yet, but it's a 200, almost 300% increase in profits from last year. Like, it's not like a big number, and the decision we just made should again give us next year another maybe 400 or 500% increase in profitability. And you know, we're still in the turn of the ship, so I think we've just been able to make some really hard calls together, and while we haven't seen the fruit, so it doesn't feel like full success yet, we've really moved the needle a lot. I think our financial visibility and I was pretty good with financials previously. I just wasn't disciplined to maintain rigor around them.
Mm-hmm.
But I knew how to read them and understand them. And then Kayla, over the last year, you know, we invested a lot. We invested a lot in her gaining that knowledge and acumen. And so now, like, it's just really fun. You know, the day after we did the layoff, like, the layoff was literally the hardest day of my professional career. Okay. And the day after, I felt so much joy and so much lightness because there was a path. The business was so draining to me in 2019. And you can ask Kayla, I've just been a cranky son of a bitch to work with for the last 18 months because I literally got to the point where I just didn't even want to show up here every day.
Right.
And like, that's a pretty bad place for your visionary to be, who needs to be the energy of the organization. Right. And one of the reasons is we just kept dancing around the break-even line. And that was just, for me, I need to, like, I'm a competitive person and I need to see a payoff and I need to see a win. For me, I mean, I've always been in sales. So, like, to be able to get, like, hey, we made 50 grand this month. Yeah. Like, that's fun. Now I can go spend 5 of it somewhere, you know, like, I just enjoy that, or go buy a property or whatever it is. And that wasn't happening. And so, like, I'm like, what the hell am I doing? Why am I doing this? I don't want to do this. This is not what I want to do. Like, I could make more money selling houses by myself without all these people around here. And I mean, I that feels hard to say because I do love people, but it was so draining on me. It was so draining on my family. Because then I'm not showing up as my best self at home as well. And, like, I didn't grow up in a great nuclear family. And so I had no expectations coming in. And I don't know what it means. Before the last 5 or 7 years, I really didn't know what it meant to love your family. Cause my family was there, but, like, I just had to figure out how to live. And that they weren't part of that. Mm-hmm. And now, like, I love my wife. I love my kids. I want to be around them. I don't want to be thinking about business and worrying about business 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And so all that was happening, and I was just cranky.
Yes.
Haro, can I ask you a question around that? Because I think I see this in my coaching. Linzee, I know you do too. I think a lot of team owners are in that same place where they have to make a decision of, I can make more money if I go back and just be a single agent, or I can build a team. How do you walk through that decision, and what compelled you to choose continuing to build a team?
Such a good question.
Yeah, you know, at the end of the day, I would like to create opportunity for others to be able to have opportunity. And I'm a better starter than I am a manager. And I don't think that my highest and best use is selling houses every day. Now I'm doing it this year. Like I'm stepping back into production. I haven't done that for 5 years. And I took my first listing this week. So the first listing in a while, let me be clear.
First listing ever.
Yeah, 2 years ago, 1 year ago. I don't know. I did have a really big land closing today that I sold a biggest commission ever. $47,000. It's good.
There you go. Man, Greenville, that's huge.
That's really big.
Well, that's really big in Greenville.
Yeah.
What was I saying?
Why not just do it yourself in Setain? Well, there's also one of like Haro's high values is freedom.
It's true.
And so, you know, he's considered, you know, even other income streams and income opportunities. And that's something that he filters things through is freedom is a really high value for him. And when you give him freedom, you get your best Haro. And you don't get your best Haro in confinement and constriction. And so in any zone of
I told you she see things clearly.
Right.
So for him, like freedom is not doing all your own listings.
Yeah.
And that wouldn't bring the highest value to his family or anyone that he worked with. Because you get your best Haro in freedom.
I love that. That's super clear.
Yeah. And, you know, I love that Christy brought that up because that is, I'm hearing it so often. I'm hearing it from, I mean, it's the, you know, the visionary at the top looking at the numbers because I think everybody, I think we just all felt like we could always sell our way out, right? Like I'll just go sell homes again, or I'll bring 5 people in that I know are going to crush it. And I'm going to sell my way out of this. Right. And we have all learned, I think multiple businesses across the country, doesn't even have to be real estate. We've learned that you just can't do that. Right. Like you have to make cuts and you have to watch the profit and you have to be diligent about that. And so many of us weren't. And so we automatically go back to, you know, and I joked about it in the beginning before we even started, like, well, I should just sell homes again because then I'm gonna make more money than I'm making right now. But that's not the answer. And I think you guys have made really hard and tough decisions to right the ship and go in the right direction. And I just think that it's huge for people to hear about because a lot of times we're not doing that and we want to just sell our way out, right?
Yeah, I just don't think, I think the path to all sorts of things is to win through people. Like whether that's more money, more freedom, more influence, more impact, more clients served, more opportunities for people. Like that's I've never been like, and I don't like working alone. So I just enjoy winning with a team.
Yep. And so when you were showing up negative, let me just ask this question as we round the corner to the end here. When you were showing up negative and you weren't wanting to come in, Kayla, how are you showing up for him in those scenarios? Because I know that other people need to show up for their visionaries in that moment. And like, how are you pushing him and loving on him and helping him be his better self?
I probably could have done better. You know, like I lean more towards the like, here's how you're showing up, dude. Like, get it together.
Yeah.
And I mean, I spent time with his wife. Like, I'm close with his family as well to try to encourage time away, encourage time with good people.
Time out. Having said all that, I did take a 5-week vacation this summer, which couldn't have been done without her amazing leadership. So that was like a highlight of my life. That might be one of the biggest successes.
There you go.
Of our time.
5-week vacation, no check-ins.
Yeah, no check-ins. Like literally nothing. No email, no text. I left my cell phone here.
Kayla's turn's next.
Yeah, right. It's time.
5 weeks, I heard.
Yeah, I hear it too.
7, 10.
So yeah, and then my most recent encouragement to him was to choose the right counselor, and just listen to one, because I think like sometimes when people are on stage or even just CEOing to each other, it sounds really awesome, and if you drill in, it just might not be that great. And so then you also get like, well, they do everything else sucky, but this one thing they do great. And then so is this person, so is this person, so is this person. So you get all these like people's one thing they're doing great and trying to do them all, and you can't do them all. And so, yeah, I really think Haro's trained, like the turning point for Haro was the right coach for him, who cares a great deal, understands business, because that's something that was lacking in a previous coach that made things, understands real estate business well and the financial implications of decisions. And so he had that coach who also just pointed him to reality and what that meant for his family. So I probably could have done better on the encouraging front. I did a lot of the like, please show up, please show up.
Right.
Haro, when she's saying to you, like, dude, this is how you're showing up, you need to not do that, or you need to show up like this, and you're high I, how does that sit with you?
No, I'm like, I'm high I, but I'm also highly rebellious.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when someone tells me something like that, my immediate reaction is just no. Like, I even found this in my marriage. My wife would ask me to do stuff, and I'd be like, no. And I'm like, why am I saying no? Like, this is a completely legitimate request. It's just like my inner automatic answer is no. And so that, I just don't respond to that.
Yeah, and there was another thing that also I did, I don't even know how much you know about this, but was that, so, it wasn't just to me. And so when some frustration would come out at someone else, but it might not have been at them really, I like worked to translate Haro to people and their experiences with Haro to people, to make sure that had the least impact on his relationships as possible. If that makes sense.
I love that. I did that with my leader in my first job. I think that's a really important shotgun leader role, is to help translate the leader, especially to other people who have really different behavioral profiles.
And I would say translate plus equip them to have their own conversations. So that's really, really necessary. And anybody who wants to lead with me and has something they want to talk to Haro about, like, it's not my job to bring that to him and be this intermediary. It's my job to help them have that conversation. Because if they want to succeed here, it's with Haro, period. Like, there's, I can provide opportunity, but it's also his business. And so to succeed here is to succeed with Haro. And so that's something I took really seriously as well.
That's amazing.
That's awesome. Thank you for going into everything that you guys have. We have appreciated our time with you so much, and thank you for running over a little bit, because I think that
I can't believe we're done already.
I know it goes so fast.
So if people want to send referrals to Greenville, or they have talent referrals for people who want to be on the team, I know you're looking for an EA currently, where should they reach out to?
You can send me an email, haro@theharogroup.com.
Send him all of the emails.
It's fine. There's probably 1,000 I haven't looked at, but I'll look at yours.
And on that
I'm
note,
kidding. It's not that bad.
that was awesome.
800.
Oh, well, thank you guys so much. We will put your information in here so that people can get a hold of you if they need to. And we're just grateful for you being honest and raw. And this is, it was good for people to hear about and learn about. So we appreciate you.
Thank you
guys.
so much.
Thanks for doing this. I've gotten a lot of value out of these. I really enjoyed this. Thank you too. Merry Christmas.
Thank you.
Same to you. Bye,
Bye.
guys.